Good morning, and welcome to Beyond Investments here on News Talk KNCO, AM 830, Nevada County. Welcome to the show today. It's been a drizzly week this whole week.
Yes, it has.
Decent amount of rain. And chilly. And a little chilly. And
but we are in a new year.
A little bit of a chilly market this week, too.
Yes. Yeah, they haven't been terrible days. They've just been down day after day after day.
Yeah, a few in a row. And, but a lot of it is, we were talking a little bit before we got started, of course, just looking at where we're at, and it's very much reality check around interest rates, I think. I think we all can agree to that it's a little bit rough when the market prices in significant rate decreases and the Federal Reserve comes out and says, well, you guys might have been a little premature. Might have been, maybe someday we'll lower rates, but not right now.
I would say hopefully not. And because remember, to get us here to the first place took some considerable pain.
It did.
With the 3-4, having a 5% Treasury should not be a big deal.
It's not the end of the world.
And I get the 2% inflation, but we could probably handle 3.
We could probably handle 3.
I mean, it looks like retail sales at the end of December were higher than expected, and people are still wondering where our consumers are getting all the money, and I'm kind of wondering with that too. So,
well, I mean, credit card debt's really climbed.
But eventually that's going to come to roost because credit card companies at some point are going to want some. Even the minimum payment can get unruly. Pretty big.
Yeah, it can get a little unmanageable for some people. When you take it too far. When you don't show discipline and you spend well beyond your means, we'll say, right?
And I think with all this free money that we've had, in different forms for the last 15 years, people don't say no to themselves.
Yep.
They have that plastic. 'Cause I remember when I was growing up, credit cards were for just the upper middle class. They had them, but if you ever used a credit card at a grocery store, they would look at you like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And I remember when that was starting to change with debit cards, and it became more of a convenience, probably in the 90s.
Yeah, I would say that's about right. Yeah.
And now it's the totally opposite. That rarely, unless you're in certain businesses, you are not using cash to buy your groceries. You're not writing a check. You're using a debit card or a credit card.
That's right. Yeah.
And it's just for the convenience. I mean,
Yeah. Or unfortunately, the last 2 years with 12% inflation, unfortunately, you're seeing some people have to use credit cards for groceries, and they really are. They're not paying it off.
Right.
Which is really sad. To keep food on the table, you're having to get yourself into debt. That's not good.
And that's why they're hoping that we can get some wage growth out of this, so people at least get some more money in their pocket, so they can manage their debt better.
That's right. Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right, and you hope that's exactly where we're heading, but. I agree with you. You look at, why would the Fed lower interest rates? Well, typically it's to spur economic growth.
Exactly.
And so are we going into a recession this year or not?
I'm starting to hear no. I heard someone, they say, soft landing, firm landing. And some people are saying no landing.
Yeah.
That this growth, again, we're not gangbusters growth.
No, I mean, it's,
but something has to propel it.
Yeah. Something has to propel it. And why would the Fed lower rates just to satisfy the market? Of course, there's always the conspiracy theory. Don't get me wrong.
Yes.
Just talking to someone earlier today, literally, who even said this. So I'm not going to say that this is my opinion.
No, but wait 6 months and they might be more right than you think.
That's true. So I'm not stating this as our opinion, my opinion. I'm saying it as someone's opinion out there believes that, you might see rates go down before the election as a way to keep people happy about an incumbent.
That's not a crazy idea, given the political landscape we've been in the last few years.
That's right.
I was at my Rotary meeting this morning, and we had this gentleman who's trying to do this kind of academy for budding capitalists and stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
And he was saying he had some charts that 20 years ago, 35% people approved of capitalism.
Okay.
Or no, it said that we were capitalists. Now it's down to 27%, and it's
really?
been just the faith in capitalism, and people are starting to think about other forms of government. But as they say, democracy is the worst kind of economic system except for all the others.
Right. And the sad thing is that when you look at where we're at today, and you look at the media, you look at even our politicians, federal politicians
on both sides of the aisle.
On both sides of the aisle.
They're almost like one party these days.
They really are. They're constantly trying to feed down this idea of democracy. Right. And I was talking with someone earlier today, and it's a constant, like, push it down our throats. Democracy.
We are a democratic republic.
We are a constitutional republic.
Yes.
So we are not a democracy. In a democracy, especially certain individuals, right?
Mob rules.
It's mob rule. It's 51%.
Yep.
The majority wins.
Yeah.
There are in a democracy, there are no protections for the minority at all. And no matter how you define the minority, if you are in below 51%, whatever it might be, whatever's being voted on, whatever's being proposed, economic things, political things, so whatever it is, cultural things. If you are in the less than 51%, you have no protections.
Yeah.
You will not be protected whatsoever. You're none. It's none.
And I think a lot of people out there, that's what they're scared of.
Absolutely. I'd be scared of that.
And again, I think we're in an age where, 20, 30 years ago, I would have said, I don't think we're going to get there. Now I can see it. I can see it happening slowly but surely.
I mean, they'd love to see us actually be a democracy, because then it's like, all we have to do is get 51%. And when you have a media and the government that's right.
And there's those in the government that want that power. I think they all do it at some point in the decline of ethics.
They do. Absolutely.
Decline of ethics and morality gives them the cover where all of a sudden, it used to be you appealed to their ethics and their morality to keep some of that in check. I mean, there was always things going on, but you take that away and
it's gone. It's gone. I mean, let's be honest, it's gone.
But we should probably back up a little bit.
Let's back up a little bit. Let's dive in. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
A little more lighthearted. We're getting a little heavy here. A little heavy for the new year. Okay.
It's a good year to do it, though. 2024.
Yes. And most of my trivia is not going to necessarily put a smile on your face. But going January 17th, 1991, as the U.S. military blasts Baghdad and Kuwait, driving back Saddam Hussein's invading troops, the Dow Jones Industrial Average shoots up 4.6% to close at, what do you think? 1991. What do you think of the close of?
The Dow?
Yeah.
Probably 4,000, 5,000?
Half that, 26.23.
That's it, only 26. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
1946, slow down, bull. When the stock market up more than 20% since World War II, this is 1946, I don't know if I said that, ended just 5 months earlier. The Federal Reserve Board temporarily eliminates all margin trading, preventing anyone from trading stocks and money borrowed from a broker. Probably a good idea.
Yes. Agreed.
Yeah. Margin is like having a credit card with nothing to back it.
With nothing to back it. Yeah.
We got 1834, so going out of ways. President Andrew Jackson seeking to dissolve the Bank of the U.S. Wall Street tanks. Shares of the blue chip Delaware and Hudson Canal close at $73, a 20% loss in just 2 weeks.
Wow.
So the blue chips used to be Delaware and Hudson Canal.
That is
when Canal was the big deal. That was like the internet.
Exactly. Yes.
The trade had opened up on the East Coast.
That's right. Yes.
And then going all the way back to 1792. Today is the birthday of the dollar sign.
Oh, interesting.
As it shows up for the first time on a federal document, a U.S. Treasury bond issued to George Washington.
Wow.
Interesting. So it's instead of an L, it's an S.
Yeah.
With the two lines as opposed to the British pound.
Okay. Yep.
Moving on to sports. Yeah. Moving on to sports. I did this because it's the Bay Area. Okay. This is the Bay Area trivia. 1990. Major League Baseball pitcher Dave Stewart, also a former Dodger, but had his best years with the A's, signs a record. What do you think the record was for a one-year contract in 1990?
Well, that's post. I mean, that's post Nolan Ryan, who signed for $1 million,
right?
Back. So I got to go. The record then probably wasn't terrible. I mean, it was probably $2 million.
$3.5 million.
3.5. Okay, darn, that's close.
1994, Patrick Ewing becomes the first New York player to reach the 15,000 point mark of his NBA career. Scores a game high 34 points in the Knicks' 106-94 win over visiting Minnesota.
Wow.
And here's another one for me, just because I am a Rams fan.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a good day for me back in 1995 when the LA Rams announced they were moving to St. Louis.
That's when they went to St. Louis.
But now they're back. But they lost.
And then they lost.
Yeah. But they won a couple of years ago. So
they just got the Super Bowl 2 years ago.
I know you can't get too greedy. Well, you can, but you should. Anyways, 2012, LeBron James becomes the youngest player in NBA history to record 20,000 career points during the Miami Heat's 92-75 victory over Golden State. James, 28 years, 17 days, passes Kobe Bryant, who was 29 years and 122 days.
Okay.
Moving on to music trivia. 1966, NBC TV has, in the U.S., bought the Monkees series, placing it onto their 1966 autumn schedule. The series centered on the adventures of the Monkees, a struggling rock band from Los Angeles, California, and introduced a number of innovative new wave film techniques to television.
That's interesting.
That I didn't know.
No.
I used to watch the show, though, not when I was 4, but in reruns.
Right. Yeah.
American actor James Earl Jones, whose deep, resonant voice lent air to the gravitas to many roles, was born in Arcabulta, Mississippi in 1931. So he's born the same year my mom was. So he'd be, what, 90?
He'd be 90-something.
90-something.
Wow.
And in 1871, the German Empire is established. Most people don't realize that Germany, for most of its history, was a bunch of little principalities and states.
Right.
So in 1871, the German Empire forged as a result of diplomacy rather than outpouring of popular nationalist feeling was...
Very interesting.
Siri, I tell you. She has no manners.
No manners.
Was founded on this day in 1871 in the aftermath of 3 successful wars by the North German state of Prussia.
Yes.
So that is it for trivia. But I thought, we were talking earlier today that now that we're in the new year.
Yep.
I know those pesky New Year's resolutions.
Yes.
We'll call them New Year's goals.
New Year's goals.
New Year's reminders, financial reminders.
That's right. Yes.
Siri,
I like that idea. That's a great idea to look at New Year's goals, New Year's financial health decisions.
But now that we're in New York, having people remember to start looking for those pesky tax documents that are.
Yes.
The sooner you get those in, the sooner you can file.
That is very true. Well, let's come back. We're going to talk New Year's. We're going to talk some goals, and we're going to talk about some financial health stuff. And we're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Beyond Investments right here on News Talk AM 830. Welcome back to Beyond Investments here on News Talk KNCO AM 830. Financial New Year's goals.
Yes, now we're halfway through January.
We're already halfway through January. It's pretty amazing.
If you haven't, if you've set these goals and you haven't broken them yet, there's still a chance.
There is, yes.
So we should probably, since we're a financial show, we should probably talk about the financial ones.
I think it's a great idea, because whether it's a little cliche to say that you're going to start the new year and you're going to make some changes, who cares?
Right.
At the end of the day, who cares? Whatever gets you going, whatever gets you to make the right financial changes to improve your long-term financial health. I don't care whether it's at New Year's or whether it's not. So I think it's a great idea to talk through it, because if it gets you going, it gets you going. So, when we think about financial goals, generally speaking, first steps all around budgeting.
Yes.
It's all around. And the first step around budgeting, when you think about budgeting, I know it's a 4-letter word in some households, so maybe we don't call it a budget. We keep it, I used to joke around. We'd call it an expense tracking.
And that's what it is.
Which is really what it is.
It's just, budget just puts limits on it.
Correct. So I think that oftentimes the first step to developing a budget, developing an expense, tracking platform within your own household, is to go backwards and look at the last 6 months.
Exactly.
And see what's been going on in your household. If you haven't paid close enough attention to it, what are your bills?
What's working? What's not working?
Yeah, where are you spending money? Where are you forgetting about that you're spending money?
Yep.
What are some of those things, those pesky subscriptions to everything that seems to come down the pike constantly?
That's one I've that was one of my New Year's resolutions, was to really do a deep dive in our spending to identify those things that I bought on a whim at one time and I just haven't canceled it, or it was a good idea at the time and we just get busy. But that's probably, if you've got 4 or 5 things that you're paying $15 a month every month, that adds up to real money.
It adds up to real money.
Now, you might have bigger fish. Money. Yeah, but start with a little easy stuff.
You got to start somewhere. That snowball starts really small and then gets bigger and bigger and bigger as it rolls, right?
And then you just say, well, maybe if it's, let's say it's not a huge dollar amount, and you go and that's how you blow it off. It's not worth my time.
Right.
Think, if I took that, if I identified it, let's say it was $200 a month.
Yeah.
Okay. Or even $100 a month.
Yeah.
And I'm not fully funding any of my retirement plans. Maybe that's $100 a month I can repurpose from buying subscriptions to now going into my Roth IRA or my IRA, or having my employer take another $100 out of my 401k, and I'd be in the same place. It would be break even.
It'd be a break even, and you have more money set aside for longer term.
Right.
It's amazing, and it makes such an impact. The time value of money. When we think about that time value of money, that compounding interest effect, the compounding growth effect is huge over time.
Yes, it is.
So,
as they say, we said many times, it's time in the market, not timing the market.
That's right.
And again, I've mentioned this before, but it's a great exercise for those of you who are somewhat familiar with Excel spreadsheets.
Yep.
Find a cell, put a penny.
Yes.
And then have the next cell be twice the previous cell.
Right.
And see how quickly a penny becomes real money.
Real money.
It doesn't take as long as you think.
No, it doesn't. It really doesn't.
And that's a classic example of the compounding.
Yep. Big time. It's amazing.
And every year, I mean, I just looked, was doing my own funding of an IRA, I think. The limits go up every year.
Yeah.
I mean, it's up to,
pretty regularly.
For old guys, it's up to $8,000 a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where I remember it was $5,000 or $2,000.
I remember back when it was 2,000.
It was at 2,000 way too long.
Oh, for way too long. I agree. It was way too long. $2,000 a year. It was just not enough. Especially on a Roth IRA. It's after tax money. Right? Why are you limiting me on what I can put away after I've already given you the pint of blood that you wanted out?
Because they know that pint is going to be a gallon in 20 years, and then they're going to they can't tax it.
Yes, correct.
That's probably a discussion for another show.
That's a discussion for another show.
The long-term viability of the tax freeness of a Roth distribution.
Yes, we'll see how long that lasts.
But I guess, we were talking about the budget.
Yep.
Look back 6 months.
Look back 6 months. Let's see what you got going. What are you spending money on? Where are those bills? What's your average utility? What, all of those kinds of things. Develop and without judgment of it. Don't judge yourself on it. Don't feel bad about it, right? Just track it. Get it down on paper or in a spreadsheet or somewhere. Get it down. Figure out what's going on.
And plus, it's really important that you not be judgmental, because even if you had flat spending from the year before, it probably cost you 10 to 20% more because of inflation in the last couple of years.
Yes.
So just remember that. And you had no control over that.
No, nothing. And don't kid yourself. Don't lie to your own self about about money you spend. Try to make it like, oh, well, I don't want to feel as bad about my own spending. It's just you. There's no one judging this. You're not turning.
If there's a family, spouses, you got to be careful. Don't start blame it's because of you or this and that, because all of us have our stuff that is important to us that may not be important to anybody.
That's right.
And if we think we can afford it, we're going to buy it.
Yes.
And without further evidence, that's what we're going to do.
And if you go into it with judgment, or you go into it with resentment against a spouse, it's not going to lead to good things.
No, it's not.
So go into the, the judgment-free zone, we'll call it, right?
Yes.
And just be honest about it. Be clear and open and honest about it. What are we spending money on? And then you can have that discussion. Let's now prioritize. And, the next step really when it comes down to budget is priority. Mm-hmm. So start with the essentials. It's a roof over your head. It's lights turning on. It's water. It's food.
Transportation.
Right? Let's start with this. Let's work our way down. Yep. Transportation, right? So then it works our way down in the need category, right? Down into wants.
Right. I think, and I have a feeling that the one people are going to trip over, I think we all do a little bit, is I think we all probably value entertainment more than we should.
Yes.
We will spend a lot of money on entertainment, and rather than doing other things. And I am just as guilty as the next person.
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, those other things, if all you have is money for the important stuff and not much for entertainment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The entertainment's got to go.
Yeah, or you have to. That's where you're going to cut out a lot of the fat.
It's
most
where
likely.
you should.
And then it's the Apple TV. It's all the Hulu, all that stuff because they're all, they're getting bundled a little bit now. But I get very confused on.
And half of it's overlap.
Exactly. Yeah.
You pay your almost $200 a year for Amazon Prime, and you pay your $200 a year or more, whatever it is, comes out to for Netflix. There's a lot of overlap between those two.
Yeah.
And so you're essentially double paying for a lot of stuff.
And now that they're cracking down on people sharing accounts.
Yes. Now it's like, oh, we're not stretching this as far. We're not able to share this around and whatnot. So absolutely 100%, looking at what you got going and then prioritizing it, looking at needs versus wants and being honest about what is a real need and what is a real want.
Exactly.
I think we oftentimes do kid ourselves when we think about that. And so just remember, it's just between you and possibly your spouse, or if you're on your own, it's just you. Then it really is just you. So, do you really want to kid your own self? I don't know. I just don't see that. So the key is be honest with yourself about what you got going and what you're doing. And then start looking at your goals. Looking at, okay, now that I've built this out, do I have enough money? And developing, most people develop a system of a budget that shows inflows, shows outflows, and has a net number at the bottom.
Right.
And let's assume,
which you want it to be positive.
Let's assume that number is positive, right? Okay. What I disagree with that type of budgeting is when it comes to saving. Because oftentimes that is, you look at your need, you look at what comes in, and then you look at the needs and some of the wants, and then you'll using air quotes, save the rest.
Right.
It's not.
That's backwards.
It's backwards. It's not purposeful saving.
It's not.
So your budget should actually equal 0 at the bottom because your saving is purposeful and is a specific line item of the budget.
Right. It might be multiple. You could say there's household saving, which is the emergency account, which I have in my local bank in cash.
Yeah.
I don't care if I'm getting very much interest because it's there for a rainy day.
Correct.
As opposed to my 401k contribution, my IRA contribution.
Yeah.
All those which are longer term investments, but it's still savings.
Still saving. And what oftentimes happens, human nature is, I'll save what's left over.
Right.
Never happens.
Exactly.
When you have the mentality.
Yeah.
When you have the mentality, I'm going to save $500 a month, more often than not, it actually happens. As human beings, when we set our minds to things, just generally speaking, we generally like to follow through on our own stuff. So when you think about a budget, I prefer to encourage people to use what's called a zero-sum budget, where every dollar is accounted for, even if it is specifically as an item of saving. So it's a 0 at the bottom, right? So it's all been accounted for, planned for, and has purpose to it. And so looking at that type of a budget is a little more hands-on.
Yes.
It really is, because you're going to have to track and you're going to have to take account for and take ownership of every single dollar, and track it and plan for it, break it out. I've talked about this before years ago. It's been a few years since we've done a budgeting thing, but having a line item in your budget for food, but then you go to Costco, you're going to need to, yes, it's going to be cumbersome, at least for the first while, especially as you try to meet your, establish new habits and new goals. Taking that Costco receipt and breaking it down. It's not just $500 at Costco dumped into whatever. It needs to be broken down. Costco, wow, we spent 150 of that was on food. Let's add that to our expense for this month on food. And we bought a couple of clothing items in there. Great, let's add that to the clothing item, right? So when you think about these big box stores, Costco, Walmart, Sam's Club, all the things that offer, Target, everything that has lots of different things, especially when you get going, it's really important, I found, that you need to recategorize those receipts. Because it's not as easy as just taking your B of A or wherever you bank, Chase, wherever it is, dumping it into a program and letting them categorize it.
Right.
B of A, I know you use B of A and it does a great job categorizing a lot of different things.
Yeah.
but it's never going to do a good job. Honestly, it never will and never can do it on Costco and Walmart and Target.
Right. You're right.
It's going to likely just take that whole amount and dump it under household supplies or like general shopping, or like it just calls it something. So I'm encouraging people. Yes, it's cumbersome. It is, and it's a lot of homework. But you know what? You're going to get a heck of a lot better idea on where you're spending money on and where your budget is.
And one caveat to that if you were disciplined enough and organized enough that you know you have a budget for Costco.
Yeah.
So let's say my Costco budget's $500 a month, and I stick to that. Then it probably doesn't matter. But if it's
okay.
If it's all over the place,
yes,
and you kind of need to know why is it 1,800 some months and 300, then you need to do, because you need that's variance analysis, and
that's right.
Variance analysis is something I used to do at a previous job.
Yes,
where you want as many categories as possible so you can really isolate.
Yes,
because senior management, if there was a deficit, why this big charge? They want to know why, and you better have it carved up. So
that's right.
If you're doing detective work on, let's say you have a spending issue. Let's say that number not zero, not positive, it's negative.
Yeah.
Okay. Then you've got to uncover why is it negative? Where am I going over, or what am I missing?
Yes.
And that's the hard part.
That is the hard part.
Because a lot of times it's those little things that bring us joy that we say, I don't need it, but I really like it. And you get, could be the $4.50 Starbucks coffee every morning.
It absolutely could be. Yep, absolutely. So as we think about this budgeting, the first step, guys, major, is to get a handle on what you're doing. Don't worry about trying to cut it back immediately. It's the, I've got to cut back everything right now. First step is look backwards. Let's take a look at the last year, the last 6 months. There's so many online resources there with your banking, with your credit cards, with everything. It's absolutely possible to go backwards. I remember back in the day, it was kind of hard. You had to, I'm going to go to my checkbook and then I'm going to go bounce around all these different places, cash, figure out what did I spend on cash for the last 6 months. Well, today, like we started this a little bit, was most people put almost everything on some kind of a card, whether it be a debit card, credit card, something that's trackable. That's relatable to and referenceable to the past. So you can pull all of these records, pull all of that information for the last 6 months.
And speaking of cash, I don't know about you, but I've been to resorts and places where they don't accept cash.
Yes.
So we're at a time when we're being pushed into more electronic, and some of that is there's
some issues with that.
Yes, there are some issues with that, which we might discuss in another show.
Yeah. Well, as always, we're going to bring this topic up again because we're going to dig in a little deeper here in the future. But I want to encourage you to take that first step this week, next week. Spend a couple weeks. It might take you 2 weeks, right? Doing it here and there in the evening after work, whatever it might be on the weekend. Spend the next 2 weeks. Let's get you through to the end of January, where you've got the last 6 months to even a year worth of tracking done, categorized and done, and then we'll reevaluate a little bit more around the budget development process a little bit deeper. I'd like to encourage you, all you listeners out there, if you'd like to give us a call and learn more about what we do, you can give us a call at 273-4425 and come experience the difference when you think beyond investments.
Bye, folks.